first
obstacle.
Obstacle is we make decision based purely on political gain, on political reasons. We don't make the decisions on economic reasons. Understand?
Absolutely.
So
the problem is not really the infrastructure; it's how it is allocated. You're saying political expediency.
Correct.
I mean, and not necessarily. But we have the activists. It's been so he wants to. He's addicted, and I'm the one so that is why you can see I'm very somber today because stop somber. Stop somber. Where are you?
Most, I am here.
You're on mute.
And I'm unmuted now. And thank you to all those that are holding the fort. Keba Foon, seeing Mr. Saul Baji and they're gonna the other crocodile on the side, Karamba. But most, I have been listening in and out.
Right.
And I think there is something that I heard you say, and that is sometimes lost in all this. Can Gambia do what Senegal did? The question is, Senegal has done what Gambia did.
Exactly.
Ours, I think, was a lot more complicated than the Senegalese situation. And then now, of course, when something happens, everybody is trying to see how they can replicate that in their own countries. It's just like when 2016 happened. Some of us got calls from everywhere.
Exactly.
The Togolese wanted to know how we did it. The Burkinabes wanted to know how we did it. The Ivorians wanted to know how we did it. The Guineans. So we got all these calls, some of us, from people asking, how did you do this? What can happen? I remember being invited to a conference call by a group of activists from another country. And they wanted to know, what did we do? The fundraising aspect, the activist aspect. So it's like, if there is anything, we are also a reference to changing a government. Senegal changing a government is nothing new. In fact, if you study the Senegalese political landscape, it will look like every other 2 terms, they will not only vote in a new president, but they will vote in a new party.
Yes.
It was WADA. When WADA was gone, they brought APR. APR had a candidate in this election. They said, no, we want to go Pastef. And chances are in 10 years, they may go to another group. So this is nothing new in Senegal. But you also have to appreciate the resilience of the Senegalese people in fighting Maki's dictatorship, which I know you're not going to agree to. I don't care anyway whether you do or not. To at least make sure that at least they were able to salvage their country and have the change that they.
Yange break out the pop samba. We're losing you. One other song. There he goes again with this dictatorship thing. One not once, not twice. You cannot. Can you imagine? Under a dictatorship, I can guarantee you that what we're witnessing in Senegal will not happen. That is the real truth. Under a serious dictatorship, Benin affair. But now,
go ahead.
As Maki, like I said, did he abuse power? I think he did. Was there a lot of overreaching? I think he did. But at the end of the day, I mean, did he kind of demonstrate dictatorial tendencies? In other words, hacking to the letter of the law, the powers that were given to him. Yes, he did. But at the end of the day, I think institutions withstood it, and whatever he wanted did not happen. If it was Soviet Union, we are talking a totally different story. If it were places like Venezuela or Iraq, it would be a totally different story. Even Iran, a theocracy, it would be a totally different story. That is why I've always been very, should I say, cautious by characterizing a situation as a dictatorship. Some people would even say, I remember we having this argument that even Gambia is under a dictatorship. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean,
yeah, I believe that. But
I mean, no, but Gambia, I'm gonna bro, we are not under a dictatorship.
It's a democracy.
Dangerous. It means like sanitize seriously countries that are serious under a dictatorship. Sanitize. When we were under a dictatorship, people were being slaughtered. That's what you are sanitizing, in other words.
No, no, Musa. Let me disagree with you. I think it happens at different levels. When Yahya Jammeh started to do whatever he ended up doing for 22 years, it was not cold turkey. He did not jump from being the good guy that promised to bring change to the country and all of a sudden started killing people. It was systematic. So let's not forget that when you categorize a particular person as a dictator, that somehow they have to be doing extraordinary things, Keba and Karamba, that they have to do extraordinary things by torturing and murdering people in large numbers out in the open. They usually do these things in subtle ways, Musa. And this is where the difference is between categorizing or characterizing Maki as being a dictator or not. I believe he was dictatorial because what he did was dissolving the passive political party. There was no constitutional law that gives Maki the power to do that.
Absolutely. There was abuse of power. But
okay, so that's dictatorial. Because
but Gambia, because you said you agree that Gambia is under a dictatorship.
Of course, because Adamo Barrow, let me give you an example here.
Yeah.
This activity of having a what I call a demolition czar who goes around. Hold on, because leader Vice I'm giving you an example.
To do with
I mean, the fact that this guy, Coach Kanya, then you sanitize. Is there anything in the laws that gives Adama Barrow the powers to say and to give an executive order and say the national authority, the national authority head or whoever is this man, go out there and destroy properties that are in violation with our rules?
Yes, you are breaking the law. When you do something like that, you are breaking the law. Look, we can like or dislike.
Hold on.
But at the end of the day, I don't think there is anything dictatorial about that.
No, but why didn't let me finish, Musa. Let me finish my point. It is dictatorial because what Adama Barrow needs to do is he has to be able to draw his powers from a constitution, number one. But there are institutions that are responsible of enforcing them, Musa. You cannot have the National Road Authority take police and military officers, walk in the streets, and they are doing this indiscriminately. Some people may have been legitimately building their structures in places where they are. Now, I agree with you. Some of these structures were built in places where it's illegal, but did you see that they actually went into certain areas that they shouldn't have gone into to destroy these properties? Where does Adama Barrow draw his powers to be able to impose that will on the people? These are the things, they are subtle. The arrest of Madi Jabate, the arrest of these young people. You take a property that was owned by a Christian organization, and you went down there in plain sight, bring all the judiciaries who actually ruled against your government, that this property belongs to this institution, and you take it and give it to a Senegalese person and say, here, we want you to build a hotel here. Where's that hotel? Adama Barrow, as I'm going to pivot back to this conversation, Musa. Adama Barrow, before the elections, was in a vehicle, driving it towards Bakau and telling the security guard who was driving him that this vehicle was given to me by this Senegalese guy. Can you believe it? What are these signs that tell you that because of he's able to do these things and nobody's able to challenge him and say what you just did is impeachable? He should have been removed. So these are dictatorial tendencies. But let me pivot back to Senegal.
You can decide. So I'm going to come back to you. Pap Samba is on break. So
okay, go ahead.
So that we can just kind of monopolize the platform. Pap Samba.
Yes, and sorry about that. Well, dictatorship, you can have a dictator in a democratic setting. Like we had Trump, a dictator of the highest order, running democratic American system. So dictatorship, when we say dictatorship, it's not necessarily the whole system is dictatorial. But the person, like Maki, has dictatorial tendencies and was a dictator. In fact, his pronouncement to just ban Pastef based on a presidential order is the height of dictatorship. But like coming back to this issue, Musa, when good things happen to...
I argue with, even when they call Gambia dictatorship, Pasamba used to do that. He's a little bit much more cautious to characterize Gambia being a dictator under a dictatorship.
All I've been telling you, Musa, and I've still made it. Adama Barrow has dictatorial tendencies and has manifested them over and over again. That I'm not going to walk away from. But well, that's fine. That's why you can just wake up and just decide, do whatever you want to do. When any leader that goes outside of the constitution to do anything, you are doing power. You are exercising powers that do not. Musa, you cannot. Musa, you cannot arrogate to yourself powers you do not have. There is a reason why there are laws, and the laws are supposed to restrain any leader so that you're not going to go outside of your way because you are a very powerful person.
We just need to be careful.
Musa, I'm not going to be. How about we come to this agreement? You stay careful and leave me to be carefree. No, I just want to say this before I go because I just have about 3 minutes or so and I'm out of here. Moine, I've seen a lot of people now throwing this whole thing, what can we do? We need these young people an inspirational young person to take over the country. We need a coalition. We need all this because everybody is now hyper about this whole thing.
Right.
And I think we need to just put on the brakes for a little and just chill. The salvation of the Gambia does not rest in a young person or an old person we just need a genuine person to run the country. Let's remember, most of the people that are today called old were very young when they entered into politics. How old was Jawara when he became president?
In his late 30s. I mean, even Hussein in 1996, he was in his 40s. Can you believe that?
Yes. How old? Yeah. How old was Jammeh when he became president? Their whole council were young people. So what I'm saying here is, first, Gambia doesn't need an old or a young person in particular to salvage the country. What Gambia needs is somebody who has an idea, somebody who is honest, somebody who is guided by patriotism to run the country. And I think we play this age thing too much. These old people. Yes, the young people have a stake in that country. But the very people that I see running from one political party to the other, looking for positions, are mostly young people. So we have to be able to put things in perspective. And when it comes to this whole notion of coalition, I have nothing against people building coalition, but coalition for what? We have to also look at that. What purpose? Are we interested in just elevating somebody else into power so that they would lord over us and we'll form another coalition to try to remove that person so that we'll drive somebody else there? What I want to tell people is, if you want to engage in Gambian politics, get your hands dirty, very dirty. Don't sit on the fences thinking that, by you having an idea, okay, that you can dictate the issues. No, Gambia is, Musa may like this, nobody is restricted in the Gambia to be able to go and inspire people or look for votes. If you want to be voted into office, the people must buy into your ideas. If they don't buy into your ideas, you're not going to go anywhere. And for that to happen, you have to be able to toil and moil the soil, go into the political trade. Don't just sit there and think that just because of you are special, somebody is just going to lift you up from somewhere and say, you know what, let's make you president or a flag bearer. We are not as desperate as we used to be, Musa. Where we were looking for saviors. I don't think Gambians are looking for a savior now. That's not what Gambians are looking for. Gambians are looking for a genuine person that can help in elevating the livelihood of the Gambian people. We are not in a desperate situation. Do I want Barrow to be replaced? Yes. But I don't think it is we are not in an I don't think we are in an existential threat. We do not have that where we have to just, forgo everything and say, you know what, let's just make Sol Badji the next president. He's our savior. No, we are not looking for saviors. And I think this is why we have to be very careful as to who is elected next as president. We cannot go through this circle of just replacing one president with another and just going the same thing again. Let's form another coalition to replace this person. No, Gambians should be able to be given a chance to have a leader who would be able to address the basic needs and aspirations of the people. Otherwise, Musa, today it will be Musa Jeng president. Tomorrow we'll have problem and say, let's go around and rally around Keba Foun president. Keba Foun will do it. Let's go and go Sol Badji. Before you know it, we'll all get in the past. Some of us do not even have that time. I don't think any one of us, all of us on this call, will be here over the next 4 political cycles. You would have been long gone, dead. Because in 20 years,
the next 4 elections,
in 20 years, some of you guys, you old people, Keba Foun and Musa Jeng and Sol, will be in your very late 80s. Nobody will listen. Either you are dead or you're not. So time is not on our side. But anyway,
election cycle. Sol, I really want to come to you.
No. Also, it's something that you said about the expectations on Pastef.
Yes.
The expectations are just as high as they were on Barrow. But again, this victory will only become a victory for the Senegalese people if they see themselves in it. If the change does not address the very aspirations why people died in this process or this thing, then it would not mean anything. And I think there are a lot of trappings in power. And I hope that they'll be humble enough and reach out to those that can change the situation in Senegal, irrespective of whether they support Pastef or other parties, to help solve these problems that Africans face. Like Keba said, infrastructural development is very, very important. But unless the bread and butter issues of the average Senegalese and Gambians and Guineans are addressed, it will not mean anything to them. But with that, guys, thank you very much for holding the fort. I'll just leave you guys with dictator.
It will not be the same. It will not be the same. We don't hear from you. Crazy
of
as
course.
You sound.
Of course, my corruption. Right, guys.
Why? Benen just be. I think Sol, and again, I apologize. Banka is on the phone from Gambia. Banka.
Let's go with Banka.
Dégg nañ la noo def nag gayang la déglu de we have Karamba, we have Sol Badji, we have Keba Foun, and then of course suñu waaji the activist on steroids. So Banka, we were just talking. We've all witnessed what happened in Senegal. What's your take on it? What is Banka's take? Something really happened.
The fact of the matter is that let's look at this and put it in the proper perspective. Every idea needs all the right conditions to flourish. And this idea, what time it always turns out to be a brilliant idea or a brilliant move. So then I just say, with Senegal, all the timing and all the things that could go right for the Sonko Jomai crew went right for them. And everything that could go wrong for, Beno Bokoyakar, the Macky Sall, and went wrong for them. Anything. So even when we look at Macky's actions to sort of stifle their political rights and all these crazy things, the constitutional crisis that he implemented, all the crazy stuff that didn't make any sense. All of those things work to these people their advantage. And the politically motivated, legal moves against Sonko himself and Dramai, obviously, putting them in jail. All of these things, they are all orchestrated by none other than Macky himself. So I think these folks, when they were, Sonko and the Pastor folks, were one very, very I would say, genuinely in their struggle. They were very aggressive and they fought very, very hard. They were willing to go toe-to-toe with Maki. And they fought a good fight to get to where they were. And obviously, then Maki helped them along the way by simply just doing some of the dumbest things and making some of the dumbest moves. And then in the final analysis, even undermining his own candidate, Ahmad Ba, making sure that I believe Maki orchestrated Ahmad's downfall. So a whole lot of things that could go right for Pastef went right for them. And I think it's a well-deserved win for Pastef.
So I know that we were kind of going back and forth behind the scenes about the role that Maki played. That somehow, I mean, Maki was not really interested in Amadou Ba to be elected, and he actually wanted Pastef to win. Do you really mean that literally? Or did he just...
Yes, I do. I honestly mean that. And I think, I do believe. But somewhere along the way, when all the dust settled down and, when the practice are done and the game is over, I do believe that you will hear revelations that will come out to confirm what I'm saying. I mean, you look at Maki's actions and you look at the things that prevailed and you look at all the information that are now coming out as far as how Maki purposely tried to get in the way of this guy's campaign and not supportive of him in any way, form, or fashion. I'm looking at the folks, like say Karim Wade, that he was vouching for and fighting for to make sure Karim could stand, and Karim to go and now join with these other guys that he released from prison by way of amnesty. A whole lot of different actions that Maki was doing all of these to make sure that Pastef could win and Ahmad Ba lost. I have strong convictions as far as that issue is concerned.
But I have a hard time being convinced on that because of this reason. It was Macky Sall that actually hired Amadou Ba, managing director of EMPO. It was Macky Sall that brought him and made him Minister of Finance. It was Macky Sall that hired him to be Minister of Foreign Affairs. It was Macky Sall, among all the candidates Benno Bokk Yakaar, he literally handpicked. He was given the powers to do that. He handpicked Amadou Ba. Now, how in God's name, and Macky, from day one, he did not want Pastef to win. He has done everything, even banning of Pastef, sending Sonko to jail, you name it, doing a lot of overreaching. Why would all of a sudden, Macky said, you know what, Amadou Ba, you're not my man anymore. I really want Pastef. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make political sense at all.
I hear you. But there is something called bias remorse.
Bias
Maki
remorse.
was the one who handpicked Ahmad Ba, put him in there. It was Maki who was actually vouching for Ahmad Ba in the beginning, before he was even chosen. It was Maki, like you said, who put help him along the way and all these sort of things. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at Maki's actions, all throughout the course of all these events, you can see latest events that is. You can tell that most likely he had a bias remorse. He thought Ahmad Ba was going to be his guy. He's sort of like a guy who is going to do his bidding at the end of the day when he gets him to win. And maybe Ahmad Ba didn't seem like a guy who will do that for him. So he had to go and get somebody else. But it's already too late for that because this guy's already picked. Because Maki's own actions, Maki's utterances, Maki's steps that he took, I can go through the list of actions, and I gave you some of them already, if you want to. But what I'm trying to say is this, that at the end of the day, Maki did not campaign for this guy. Senegal, the whole of Senegal can confirm that. At the end of the day, no resources of Maki's, their party resources were used to campaign for this guy.
No, he did give him resources, though. I did hear that from Amadou Ba himself. Resources were given to him.
Listen to me. From insiders, even the teasers that had Macky Sall and this guy on them. Macky Sall and Amadou Ba on teasers. Those teasers were never allowed to be released. And the order came from Macky Sall. And not to mention the fact that Maki's wing of that coalition, the Benno Bokk Yakaar coalition, Maki's wing of the coalition, when you look at all of them, their actions, throughout, even in the regions where Maki is strongest. A lot of those areas that Amadou Ba is supposed to win, he ended up not winning because Maki and his coalition side of the coalition did not go out there and fight hard for this guy. It just never happened. Also, like I said, even looking at the coalition that came to be between what's his name again, Karim Wada and Patriot folks. At the end of the day, it was Maki. These are the two camps that Maki was fighting vigorously for at the tail end of things. He was the one who orchestrated the amnesty. He was the one who was insisting that these guys should be able to run all of them. He was Maki. So now, if you want to tell me that, Maki, with all the things he did to Patriot, well, Maki turned around and he wanted to release, but he wanted Patriot folks to believe, and he wanted to release, and he wanted even Sonko to be able to run. So was there a change of heart along the way? Obviously, that's the indication of that. What I'm trying to tell you is, we don't judge his former actions by simply saying, he did this, so that could not be the case. Well, at the far latter end of things, he turned around and he started doing things that showed you that this guy was in alliance and some sort with these people. Because it was the same Maki who sent them to jail, who actually made sure that they had an amnesty to get out of jail. And it was Maki who was insisting that they should be able to run. It was the same Maki who was insisting that Karim Wada should be able to run. Even after having been disqualified by the Constitutional Council. So what I'm saying is, if you say one thing on the other side, then look at it from the other side also. And look at what Maki did before and after. It was the after actions that I'm alluding to. All of them indicate that Maki was going sour on his own candidate. In the end, he didn't want him to win, even though he chose him. And in the end, he was this other side that he was marching for. It was that plain and simple. And I'm convinced of that.
I'm not convinced, but let me hear from the other guys what they think about your suggestion. And Saul, I think you were the one. So Banka, just hold on a minute there. But Saul, you heard what Banka is saying. Basically, Maki went out of his way to sabotage Amadou Ba, his handpicked man, and was much more interested in seeing, I guess, Pastef to be elected. What say you to that? Banka.
Well, I disagree with my Nyancho to some extent, but then he's poking at some of the inconsistencies of Maki's behavior, and then we pivot and give him credit that it was intentional. Young Adiga.
Banka, you gotta be on mute there.
So my point is, Musa, maybe we should look at it from a logical standpoint. As a politician in the capacity of Maki of so many years of experience, that he would, after trying to isolate this guy, after trying to completely distinguish himself, Amadou. Why did I'm on call Bignon, so I have to start it off. So what I'm saying is, after all these years, 9 years, Macky Sall don't try to make sure that this guy Sonko does not have an opportunity to compete, to the extent that he would dissolve his political party and lock him up in jail and lock up so many people. And then, Musa, we forget to mention this. There is a huge price that Maki has paid in his attempt to self-perpetuate. First, he couldn't succeed in the third term. And then the next thing is the economical implications of what Senegal had to go through, Musa. Not to even mention the destruction of the name. This was the golden platter that Senegal has always had, that Youssou N'Dour was able to promote that country, that investors came to that country to invest, that Senegal is usually, it has always stood as the democratic beacon of the continent of Africa, that the institutions were solid, that everything was going in its direction, that they have never had a time in their history where a presidential election was postponed, or you could call it democratic coup d'etat, by going to parliament to make sure that they postpone these elections because somebody else in a foreign country who was accused by Macky Sall, and they left the country.
So I'm not correct there. Let me bring in Keba Foon. Keba.
Yes, Father Moses.
Yeah, Yange Dega Banka on his analysis. Before I get to Karamba.
Well, yes. Yes, Angedega Banka. I mean, it just reminds me of another African country. And throughout the years following African politics, it's nothing new what Macky was doing. Yeah. It happens all over the continent. Macky, at first, wanted a third term. So his focus was to get a third term. That didn't work. So he said, okay, I'm going to make sure that my main opponents, I will bar them from running. And that was his strategy, to put Sonko in jail and get rid of Pasteur. That didn't work. He got a candidate and realized that, oh, wait a minute, this candidate is not strong enough. It's not going to be a strong candidate against Pasteur. So he realized that, well, I have to change strategies. Then I have to move and see how I can appease Pasteur so they will not go after me. So I have to change the strategy and go to the next strategy by letting these guys out of prison. So yeah, Banka was right. It's Macky that orchestrated the release of Sonko and Jimoy. He orchestrated everything with the hope. And before he did that, he even trying to bring Karim Wada into the race. So all those were strategies that are normal. I mean, it happens all over the continent.
So do you think that he was doing that to basically sabotage Karim Wada? I think it's very simple the way Banka is putting it, because I mean, there is this lady, Rohi Barrow, I believe. He said Macky wanted Sonko to qualify at the last minute because he knew that qualifying Sonko would also qualify Karim Wada, and that would dilute the anti-APR vote. Sonko knew this and refused the offer, and that's the only reason PDS, that is Ablai Wada's party, endorsed Jomai in the end. If Karim had run, there would have been a second round of voting, and there is no guarantee Jomai and Pasteur would have been elected in the end. For me, this Rohi Barrow, she's hitting it right on the nail. This was politics of Macky. It has nothing to do with not Banka. I don't know whether you're listening to that. It has really nothing to do with sabotaging of. I mean, but basically the lady is saying, look, this was politics. Because Macky knew exactly what he was doing. Come on, Nani, the way things were, the structure of it. I mean, obviously Pasteur would win, no doubt. Hamon Nani, Amadou Ba is a weak candidate. He doesn't have the charisma, and he definitely was not, winning the hearts and minds of the Senegalese people. Remember, Macky's obsession my one for Pasteur not to be elected. So at the end, Lolo more led to postponing the elections to give themselves time so that they can strategize, so that they can mix it up. Now,
look at it this way. Look at it this way. Karim Wada, that's where constitutional crisis started when Karim Wada went out there, accused Amadou Ba.
Yes.
Listen to this very, very carefully.
Yes.
Accused Amadou Ba of bribing the Constitutional Council so he doesn't qualify.
Right.
They can disqualify him.
Yes.
This was how it went down.
Yes.
Because he knew that Amadou Ba was excited and happy that he was not going to be able to run. Listen to this very, very carefully. Because the way the whole game was set up, it was Amadou Ba's game at that point. Amadou Ba and his was exciting on their part in terms of the fact that this guy cannot run and Sonko too cannot run. So now the field was an open field. Now, you could say that maybe they were blindsided by Jomai. They didn't see Jomai as a formidable candidate. You could also throw that in there. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the whole game plan, as far as Amadou Ba is concerned, was perfectly in shape. Notice that this whole thing was peaceful, everything was quiet, everything was going as planned. It was only when Macky rose up and said, oh, you know what our Karim Wada is saying is true. We need to go back and revisit all these decisions as to how these people were disqualified, because they should be qualified. We should be able to find a way to get them to become qualified. This is Macky. And I'm sure Amadou Ba and his folks are sitting there going, what the hell? What are you doing? Just leave this thing alone. What are you trying to do? Maki was then pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. So you cannot convince me. But somehow Maki was doing that for the guy who is saying, no, don't do this. This is the way things are right now. I like it. Because that's why Karim himself was accusing Ahmed Ba of being the one who was orchestrating the whole thing. So again, that argument sounds great, but I don't think it's plausible in light of the sort of the dynamics as to who decides is playing what. Why would Ahmed Ba, if Maki was working in Ahmed Ba's favor, why would Ahmed Ba not really be excited about that whole prospect of having these people to run? Why wouldn't he?
Maybe. But anyway, Amba.
Yes.
Was he not communicating with Maki and they were not on the same wavelength? They were not having a meeting and having a conversation about these things?
Banga, let's hear from Karamba. Karamba, you following this whole discussion about Maki sabotaging Ahmed Ba. What's your take? You heard what Banka said.
I heard what Banka said. I'm willing to grant him that there might be some aspects of bias remorse in terms of just the candidate not gaining traction and not connecting with voters and then looking weak and effectively unelectable. But that was at the terminus of an orchestrated process in which Market tried everything, primary among which was to try to get a third term for himself. When that failed, this was the backup plan. Now, it could be that, as Banka suggested, that he put all his eggs in the Amadou Ba basket, but as soon as he was unveiled, he figured that this guy is a dud. He's not going to be able to make it. Then the question then becomes, what does he do? The idea that he could go out there and then flex his muscle is to assume that he has a deliverable or a transferable clout that can then get this guy elected. I don't think that is the case. Because in Africa, Sonyake Lengei, the influence is gone. You are really not in a position to swing people. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you lose power, everybody associated with you is basically, operating on borrowed time. They are just not able to sustain it because of the way power is concentrated in the Senegalese system. Maki was Maki, and then he pulled all the strings. I do not believe that he went on the mat for Pastef. I mean, that it will take an incredible suspension of disbelief to assume that people and a movement that he was mortally fearful of, who was willing to bend Senegalese law to ban them, and then to round up their leaders, and then to also use extreme violence to suppress their street muscle. Because he understood Pastef had street muscle, which was what he was most fearful about. That he could have basically a mass movement revolution on his hands. That was what he was playing to. So I will grant my friend Banka the idea that there might be some bias remorse, because munga junju sambor, and then the galgal is not that good, that this guy is going down. So, but at that point he was out of options. He could not continue on the strong hand that he was doing, because the strong hand was not working. It was only making Pastef stronger. And then Pastef has also outmaneuvered him by having a backup plan, a series of backup plans. So at that point, he just dealt the cards he just had to deal with the cards that was left in his hands, which was to look like he's trying to kind of come back to his senses and at a minimum conduct a free and fair election, which he did. His administration conducted a free and fair election, but his hands were forced. At that point, he could not do anything. And the fact that he did not campaign for Amadou is because this guy has been around the system and he's been president for 12 years, because he knew there was no card for him to play for him. You understand? Other than tepidly saying, well, he's my candidate and I endorse him, and that, making it look like this is his guy. But he is not going to break a sweat. He has no sweat to break for him.
What I've always believed, Moine, even after the selection of Amadou Ba, and him knowing, just like you alluded to, that Amadou Ba is not really going to win based on what he was seeing. So what Maki wanted to do was scramble the deck. That's what led to even postponement of the election. If I scramble it, and then what happened, Banka? You're saying why would, when they accuse Amadou Ba of bribing the judge, what Macky saw there was an opportunity. He's like, okay, this thing is out there, so it's an opportunity to go to the National Assembly, all right, and then create this delay. All of that was to scramble the deck.
Yeah.
And the releasing of Sonko, no, seriously, man, the releasing of Sonko and Jumai, what Macky was basically trying to do, that a possibility of even having Karim Wad to run, that would definitely, I mean, your guess is good as mine. Because when he was convinced the way the structure is, there was no way his candidate would have won. So man, I wouldn't really, all of that was done for.
So the point I'm making is this: that the Maki and Amadou Ba were not on the same wavelength. Maki is doing one thing when Amadou Ba is doing another. The fact of the matter is, I am trying to tell you that the way the things were set up by the Constitutional Council, it was Amadou Ba's game at that point, and he liked it. Maki was the one who came from left field, and they started this whole fracas about the constitutional, and they started a constitutional crisis. It was all done. That was all orchestrated by no other than Maki, not by Amadou Ba.
But why was it? Why was it? The question, though, I have to push back. The question is, why did Maki say that? Was it what you're saying is he simply did to sabotage Amadou Ba?
No. I didn't say that he's orchestrated the constitutional crisis to sabotage Amadou Ba. I didn't say that. And then what my mouth. What I'm trying to tell you is, I'm just using your own words to show you that what I am saying makes a lot more sense. And that is this, that you are saying that, well, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at it, Macky was making this move so that these people can run. And then when they can run, then that really dilutes the whole process.
Exactly.
And allows these guys to be able to get that. That's what you do. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yes.
So I'm trying to say that on the contrary, though, if that was what Macky Sall's plan was,
yes,
then he didn't sit down and outline that whole plan to Amadou Ba and make him understand that that's what he's trying to do. Because that goes against what Amadou Ba was trying to do. Amadou Ba and his folks were excited about the fact that these people have been knocked out of the whole electoral process. That is Sonko and Karim Wad. Now, in fact, that's why Karim Wad was accusing him of being the one who bribed the judges to disqualify him. This is the problem, and that's what started the whole conversation. He was lucky. When Karim Wad said it, then Macky said, yeah, it's true. It's true. You know, let's go in fact revisit all of these decisions. Macky was fighting against the Constitutional Council. He had a nasty confrontation with them. No, and he was doing all that for Amadou Ba.
I believe so. I really believe so. I really believe so. But in the final analysis, Banker, what Amadou Ba wanted, in the final analysis, what Amadou Ba wanted, that's exactly what Amadou got. And he couldn't even pull it. He lost even in the first round.
No. What Amadou Ba really wanted. What Amadou Ba wanted was for Macky Sall, his main man, to use his clout, to use his resources, to use his position, to use his connections, to use his establishments and franchises that he set up all over the country. He wanted Macky Sall to use all that to help him to win.
Yeah, but Banker,
was Macky just withdraw all that support and just went to that out by himself. Unfortunately, by then, Macky had already created a lot of liability for the guy.
No, but Banker.
Suma is interjecting.
Banker.
Yeah. Right.
Now, the time of Macky had already created a lot of liability for this guy, a liability that he could have at least helped mitigate. He had just simply gone to his constituencies and make sure that at least the diehards that are still Macky to vote for Amadou Ba. But you know that there is empirical evidence, both in terms of the electoral numbers and both in terms of the support base, and both in terms of the statistics that have been carried out that are out there in Senegal, that in fact what's his name again?
Amaduba.
Macky Sall's party within the coalition did not vote for this guy. Instead, they voted for Jomai. That's empirical. There's empirical evidence for that all over the place. Because you have to remember the last election cycle, Sonko came third. He only got 15% of the votes. This time around, that whole number got flipped. It looked like Macky, whatever was on Macky's side, literally went to this guy.
I don't know about that. How about the
despite all Macky's behavior, even Donald Trump, despite his behavior, he still has a core base that still will have voted for him. But I understand all those.
But that's where the 30-something% came from. He got 30-something% of the vote.
The 30-something% of the votes are the ones that.
So Karamba, let Karamba in Banga.
Oh, Karamba. What I wanted to tell
you, we're gonna come to you real quick.
Okay, Banga, what I wanted to tell you, the moment Macky Sall stepped on that exit ramp, he does not have deliverable political clout of the sort that you think he could if he went out and then put his neck out there for Amadou Ba. It couldn't be done. That's the whole point. And that is not because out of some conspiracy.
I disagree with that. There was still a core base that would have voted for Amadou Ba.
But we get your vote at the end in the final analysis.
That is the 30% you see because
that's the 30%. No, but listen, Banga.
I couldn't hear him, but
The rest of the coalition voted for Amadou Ba. But most of basically a huge number of Macky's own base side of the coalition, his party within the coalition, those ones went and voted for Jomai.
Banka. There were 3 other candidates from Benno Bokk Yakaar. There was the John guy. There was, they got 1%, 0.08% of the votes. So where do you think the 30-something% came from? The one that voted for Amadou Ba. Like who?
We are not
hearing him at all.
Oh, guy, yeah. Okay. Yeah. They can hear you now.
Okay.
How many parties?
There was a part of PAS. You gotta be. There was a part of PAS, and then you have APR, and some of these other. Senegal. They have coalitions all over the freaking place. But if you're talking about, I don't think that the PAS people. There was a breakaway. That is the Halifa Salah's part of PAS and Barthelemy Dias. There were also the Mustafa Anyas, I believe, part of the PAS that stayed with Macky. Again,
Idrissa Seck too. Idrissa Seck.
No, Coco 1% la. Coco 1% sa.
No, but what they try to distance themselves from the choice that Macky made. Man, and I'll come in and comment.
Because Idrissa Seck was not part of the Benno Bokk Yakaar. He was the one that came second actually. In the last presidential elections. So Banka, but anyway, Keba, you've been quiet for a while, and I really want you to comment up. You've heard what Banka is saying. You know how he is. Sometimes he go off tangent. So what do you think of what Banka is saying?
Well, Majohla, a story of an other African country where the outgoing president served his 2 terms. And he got his own candidate from his party. But he realized he didn't get a good candidate. Exactly the same situation between Macky Sall and Amadou Ba. So what he did was, he already served his 2 terms. What he did was, he actually sponsored the opposition candidate. Yeah, give him money. give him money Then
that's not what
the
happened in
opposition
Senegal.
and no, and the reason was the outgoing president was accused of massive corruption in that country. So he have to protect himself. So by sponsoring the opposition to win the elections, so he can be protected when they come into government.
That's the opposition was going to protect him if he'd been accused of massive corruption.
And they did. And they did. When they come into government, they protected him. They didn't do nothing to him.
You know that my batting average is now 10 out of 10, right? You know that, right?
Your batting average.
Oh, man.
Even insiders talking. I mean, they will confirm a lot of this, what I'm saying. And then you come back here again and you and this one is on audio. We are all hearing you. So, anyway, I got to run. But thank you so much.
All right, Baghdad.
I'm so glad to hear from you,
Nyanjo.
All right,
Baghdad.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Why Musa? Musa, I come back to the theory that somebody who is on the exit ramp is in no position, and I agree with you that he did try to scramble the whole process. And then the scrambling of the process, you cannot reasonably construe that to be a maneuver to empower Pastef. No. Even if you assume that he wanted to dilute the strength of Pastef, but that is not in active opposition to his own chosen guy.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So I think maybe Banka is it's being a little bit believing that he conspired to undo his own candidate.
That's exactly what it is.
I think the market tried to. He was also partially responding to outside pressure, and I know Saul mentioned it, and we did not discuss this very in any kind of a detail. But he was under immense pressure from ECOWAS, from the AU, from the international community that he was heading towards a perilous path, that the constitutional calendar had to be upheld. So what do you do in a hand where you are facing tremendous internal political pressure, you are also facing internal division within your own coalition, and then you are also facing external things. So he did what he could have only done, which is to organize a free and fair election. And then he did scramble it, maybe to dilute the thing. But Pastef was already a phenomenon that they could not stop. So Amadou, the 30-something, because Amadou did not have, and I think Banka failed to appreciate this, Amadou does not have an independent political base of his own. He was a protege.
Constituency. The guy's been
exactly. He was a protege of Maki. Like you said, he elevated him through the bureaucracy, and then he handpicked him. So the idea that somehow this guy can muster something independently, this is the residual power base of the Maki coalition. That's the 30% he got. He couldn't have gotten anything more because he brings nothing else to the table. And then the Pastef people were able to define him as being a creature of the terrible system, that he was also personally corrupt. Because I've heard Sonko say, when they were at the Empo, he took the money and went to take Sisu. No,
why Karamba? When I saw that, I think Sonko was playing politics with that.
No, of course he was playing politics. Because he wanted to paint the guy as manifestly corrupt.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Because
corruption resonates with people, Musa. Most average people don't like corruption.
It does. When I saw that press conference, and look, Usman Sonko's reputation, you talk to any of his supporters, the whole thing is about his integrity and honesty. And he played it to the hilt. When he came out, it's like, forget about Maki. Maki is gone. Why Amadou back?
Moko gën a bon.
That is to reinforce.
Yes,
He knew
absolutely.
exactly what he was saying. He knew exactly.
Why Mose? Amadou Ba get the opportunity to defend himself. Why didn't he defend himself?
He did not rebut. He did not rebut it.
No,
That's a good point, Keba.
I saw him on. He was on KFM.
Yeah.
On KFM, and he was dealing with this issue itself. They asked him directly, and he was like, "Look, man, Director General. Do you seriously believe some of his fam neck? No,
but Musa,
it worked.
What they have done successfully is to define their opponents, and Pastef they define their opponents and they define themselves. They call themselves patriots. You understand? So by default, anybody who is not them is less than a patriot.
Yes.
You understand? And then also they take this specific issue of these are establishment candidates that have just kind of ruined the place for everybody. It's time to send them packing. That's why Idrissa Seck went from 20% to 1%. You understand? Because he said, look, this guy, Moyaka Politica. He said one time the guy showed up at his house, timey header early in the morning. He wanted to make a deal. Muneko Idrissa, you love it. Utsuma tells in it. Hana hedanga muneko fila ko yakare won.
Yeah, kapare mujil ko fanya.
It's unbelievable. I mean, look at Khalifa Sall too, a popular mayor from Dakar.
Yes.
Everybody thought he was going to do well, but I couldn't even believe it. I mean, it was then a affair, definitely.
Yeah. But Musa, just want to press my point now because I had these calls.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
That impacted me. So I'm getting all of these. Hold on. I think I'm getting.
Yes.
Okay, so that went away. So we talked about humility, credibility of Sonko, the strength of the messaging. Well, I'm not questioning like on Keba Karamba. Keba was trying to answer the question about the fact that the infrastructure was tied into the economic activities of wherever farmers were. And you wanted to ask him the question by saying you were kind of a little bit skeptical of the fact that infrastructure and the other part of the economic growth are not separate. They should be one and together. So we don't answer that question, and you mentioned the fact that the Senegambia Bridge and all of these things that are tied into economic growth. As we pivot into discussion in conclusion, what is it for us, Gambia? Before we close, what does this say about our own country? Even though we have tried to kind of see the parallels between what happened in Senegal and what happened in our country in 2016 and today. But look here, you know what? If you want to build infrastructure, and this is what some of the things Pastef claimed about, the building of these stadiums and all of these things they claim was the West saying to Maki, you know what? Show the infrastructure because people want to see tangibles. But in the end, when people didn't have something to put on the table, this was what really became the pivot of the downfall of Maki. Yes, we all know that there was a rift. The Senegalese media were reporting this, the credible ones. And Maki tended to act in a certain way. There was a rift between him and Amadou Ba. In some cases, you can say there was a sabotage. I don't think necessarily Maki did not pick candidate. Pastef has been my enemy since day immemorial. Change, just like Keba was saying, I'm going to support Pastef such that tomorrow they will not be against me or they will not call me to book for all of the malfeasance that happened. That is not going to happen. Maki knows that because, well, how many times has he asked to have an audience with Sonko Bany? So this notion lolu dina wara happen in the long run at the tail end. Fognane lolu mom you know lolu la pichay nawe sa waji bala jaxum lolu la dewa. So but
nawe.
Yeah. So Musa, lu xew moy ne the pressure was there. At the end, Maki Gisnane Fogmo hold the elections and then perhaps be able to see if we can get some leverage. But the sad part is, Musa, Maki is probably not going to stay in that country, which is going to make him the first president to take flight of his home country after doing some good work. We have to give him credit. But then Musa, the economic and democratic implications of what he did. Lolu, it will be in Maki's book of history for postponing the elections and putting Senegal through the crisis that they went to the brink of maybe having a military takeover for the very first time in their history. Fognale Lolu, it puts people on the edge to the extent that the United States was putting pressure on his neck to make sure we held the elections. So moving forward, Musa, we're talking about, you are going to take questions about Lala Paste the issue. And the question was, you look at their manifesto, they're talking about resigning from the Paste political party, which the Jamaifa did, that he is not going to associate himself in the role of the position that he held in Paste. He's still a party member, but he's no longer going to hold that position. There are signs in that manifesto or the agenda. It's a simple one, but one that came clear to me was the fact that they have now suspended funding the president's office for political rallying or campaign. The funds have been taken out. And then the other thing, when they introduce this dualism, they want to introduce English language into their curriculum, Musa. So Lulu Dafni Wara one, we should be very prepared as a country that Senegal is beginning to position itself to say, we're not just going to be a country that is going to be of a French speaking, but we want to also include kind of posture towards the West, where English language is probably the most pronounced language that is spoken out there. And the third thing is they are talking that they want ECOWAS to begin the process of introducing that ecosystem, absent of which Senegal would pivot to introducing their own currency outside of the CFR. These are very important things that ñun dañ ko wara bàyyi xel. Musa, because you guys are going to probably pivot into this. The conversation for us in the country of Gambia, Moine, where do we stand to be able to compete with Senegal? You put a perspective of an anecdote of the United States and Canada. The United States is the most powerful country, but Canada is able to compete. What do we have in our home country as Gambia to be able to put on the table, to be able to present ourselves and compete, not necessarily compete with Senegal, but have this value chain of trading between these two countries? Right now, they are at an advantage. And I guarantee you, if we don't get our acts together, we will be left behind because we have a president, I'm sorry to say this, he does not understand the implications of what he is doing. Unless we need to really advise Adama Barrow, send Nala that clip of where our economic situation is in our country. This has to be a serious conversation. Madame. I'm
gonna fana legi. I need to. No, man, I listened to it a little bit, but I also we also need to be careful with some of these propaganda too. Was that a deliberate propaganda from that was orchestrated? But anyway, I mean, I'm willing even to send it to the Minister of Finance to get his reaction. Like, what do you say to this? You know what I mean? Is that
there might be some propaganda? Is man, I looked at. I was just
because anybody nowadays can put together, I mean, a propaganda against Sol Baji or against the UDP or against Doi, and make it look like, it's coming from a well-established institution. So that's why I'm always
but the numbers are spot on though. The most important part of it. How much did we borrow during the Jawara regime? Which I'm always supportive of the PPP. How much did the IJM borrow during his term?
Factor in and inflation, borrowing $500,000 during back in 1965. It's not the same as $500,000. It's like maybe $3 million in today's present value. So that has to be factored in. And when we had the Minister of Finance here also, and again, I don't want us to talk about that because people don't even, they haven't seen that video. Minister of Finance did explain that they had to inherit. There were a lot of liabilities in the books. For instance, NAWIC, that they had to take it over, government. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm defending them, but it is what it is. Keba.
Most, can I come in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the video, and numbers don't lie. Whether that was an AI generated video, and I believe it was an AI generated video.
Exactly.
And
I agree with you, Keba. I agree with you.
Yeah, and the reason why the numbers don't lie is the computer went and get those numbers from the World Wide Web. They cite those numbers, and those numbers are accurate. It's accurate. It's a fact that Barrow took more loans, more than Jawara and Jame combined, and that's a serious situation. It's very, very, very serious. I mean, you are right. You cannot compare the dollar value of 2024 to 1960. It's a different value. But what you look at the trend. If we go from less than 20% of our GDP to over 100 and something percent of our GDP, then we have a serious problem. So that is the problem, Musa. The Barrow was just taking loans left, right, and center. I don't care. And he's putting the country into a deeper and deeper and deeper mess, Bohamne. It will take generations and generations and generations to come out of this mess. We might not ever come out of this mess. It's a big mess, Musa. It's a very serious problem. Yes, Saul, we have a very serious problem in our hand. If we don't have to take Barrow out for any reason, this is one reason why we have to vote Barrow out 2026. He must go. He must go.
Karamba.
Yes.
As we are looking at 2026, I mean, it's not far off. We're in 2024. We all can see we're already diving into April. And it won't be too long, 2026. What do you think we should learn from what happened in Senegal? And how could we at least use that to get ourselves ready for 2026 to bring about change? No matter what we all disagree with, the kind of change, who we want to be the change agent, I think there's unanimity that Gambia needs an opportunity to bring about change. How do you think this Senegal experience can be utilized to help us with that endeavor?
Yeah, good question. But first, I want to associate myself with what both Saul and Keba said, which is that the debt portfolio and the burden is a disaster, and it is not only a disaster for the current the current citizens that are living the situation, but then the opportunity cost down the road is even higher than the high cost of living and inflation and economic ruin that it is doing now. And I also agree that it is not a manageable debt. We cannot pay. There is no way up to our grandchildren. They cannot pay it. It cannot be paid. And it will continue to drain resources from other vital areas, like health and education, and then also reorienting our economy itself. Because the dollars is almost, it feels like a safer. There is no value to it and all of that. So I just wanted to say it's a very serious problem, and it's an issue that is not often understood by the ordinary citizen out there. How does the debt burden affect me? If you put it as an election issue, you will get a blank stare from a lot of people, because they don't. It's not. They cannot relate their fate to that particular economic burden. So, pivoting back to your question, what do we have to do? We need to take issues like this and make them front and center in a way where the Madisise that you had in Balangar can understand. So he says, so they may see Lumo before in Wasu, What you were buying for 500 is now 1,500. It's because these people, they've been borrowing to the hilt. Bepare liñoo leb yëpp si sa tur la bepare doo ci gis dërëm. Xam nga ñu jël bor si sa tur bepare bor boobu noonu gisuloo ci dërëm bepare yaa koy fay. Because loo jënda dafa gën a yokku rek. So the voter has to make that connection. So what we have to do, and this applies to anybody who wants to be an agent of change. I have a political party. I'm a partisan. I believe we have the best prescription. But people that are also part of independent movements, those of you who have these platforms where your raison d'etre is to discuss public issues, you need to bring this to the public understanding that these are the issues and here is how it affects them. There is a deficiency between the issues and people's understanding of the issues and how it affects them. So that's why our politics is hobbled by what I had discussed earlier, that it's all identity politics. It has nothing to do with the greater good.
Correct.
You understand? So to answer your question, 2026 has to be about what kind of a country do we want, because we already know what this current administration is about. We know what President Barrow's orientation is. We know the kinds of people he attracts. If Soko said, he attracts the same kinds of people. Political opportunists who have no interest or no investment in anything other than themselves. I'm willing to go into the trenches with this guy because Olunako. There is nothing that they do that is not about themselves and their personal advancement. Anybody you bring in his team. And these are the kinds of people he's not attracting. Patriots. Pasamba mentioned about patriotism, and that's also something Lunga Hamne, we have a deficit of Musa in our politics. Well, for me, politics is just as an escalator for personal achievement. The Moboka Party Sangamti, as soon as they win, they have to give me a job. They have to give me this, they have to give me that. So we are not approaching this as selfless patriots. And then he's willing to fight for it. So they can and we have far little of those. So that's why you can see people in the pinting pantarek Mangisi party being it's elected them across carpet, buying us my own party, definitely, or what kind of a citizen? I'm coming to declare you because Damala bring you suma group being a boka, Damala you to this political party. A citizen that is doing that is almost like livestock. Because that make the hell out of Sabopa. Yo Musajan can munula jebale, full them. And that's because you have taken the time to understand what your role is as a citizen. So this is all a problem for us. It's not about issues. It's too much personality driven. It's too much process driven. It's too much identity driven. And then, and even people sitting down and then, some people will say, well, you cannot be an independent. I believe that you need political independence in our politics. You have to swing from one side to the other.
I know. People will tell you that it's impossible. Then you're no burek. I'm not full far.
Yeah.
They don't believe me.
Why should you far everywhere? Why should you far anywhere? Anyway,
exactly.
Munga an independent, and me as a UDP person, it is my job, to give you a reason why you need to vote for our guys.
Exactly.
If I don't cut it with you, you can find somebody else. I need to be able to go to Keba, Munna Dem Sisol, or anybody else, or even people within my base. I need to give them a reason why they need to be much more enthusiastic to go and do that. That's what you do.
Exactly.
That is what politics is supposed to be about. Why Agunfa? And this is a big problem that we have. What we have learned from Pastor Moy, a vision is good. Why? The vision has to have a visionary leader also. Understand? I'm not credibility with the people. Usman Mune, well, for 15 years. So come. That is somebody who is putting his neck out there. And then people are saying, well, we know all these MPO people, they are building, Alamidis and all of that.
Exactly.
Understand? So that gives you credibility. So Soko Ane then everybody else is willing to say, well, look, this guy, I think I can go to battle with him. Because with him being the field commander, somebody may battle with him, will be fighting for the right things. Most of our politics in Gambia is transactional.
Yes.
Lolu bahu tinyun And then you, no matter how hard you try to explain to people, ne, this is your life. Bena kartarenga am. Adamo baro bena kartala am, Musa.
Yes.
So, you know, if he is able to recruit somebody munyo uchiyo, and then koku nahla, ngajok sa karta bitimom, and then it has nothing to do with your interest, that is your problem.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a problem la moneka. So Puruman 2026 has to be about the Gambian voter. Who is he? Lan la ko rewam jaral. That's the question we need to ask. What is your fate? So we can be kat nga yo ninga sonne ni danga buga continue si mem sonna bi nda danga buga try something else. Yo be kat bi yo ya muna decide lolu non. If you are a businessman with the economy going down, the currency going down, and all of that, is it really in your interest to continue with the same team? You know, if you whatever you do, so you are a construction guy, really is what you are earning enough to give you the standard of living that you are doing, because you know everything is so expensive, and everybody has to ask themselves these questions and then decide accordingly. So Lolo will be repeating the same thing. It will be the same sujer politics, and then they'll go to the same people, and then they will bring fear and tribalism. That's what they drive. That's what Lolo Moy, the biggest hobble we have. Why, if people are well informed, they put the country first. They become resistant to that. Nobody can pitch BS tribalism to you, Musa, because it's not going to fly. Why? Trust me, it will work with somebody else.
Oh, it will.
Oh, of course. It will. So it's the voter. What is going to be different in 2026? Because we all know the issues.
Yeah.
On our side, we will still bring our agenda, the 5.8, because we think it's good for the country. Why? We need to package it differently. We need to make sure that it has traction. But we need to be able to add to our base. This is a base plus election. If everybody just relies on your base, it's not going to happen. You know, because there are just basically two major contenders here for now. Unless there is a stronger third party movement, you know, it's not like, you know, 9 different briefcase political parties. I'm talking about people. The new entrants in the politics, Musa, they don't want to get into the trenches. Politics, then say Sona. It took Pastef 10 years, 9.5 years.
Exactly. People think that Pastef just came out of last year.
It didn't come out of the thing. You know how many people, they built up their ground game and they paid the price. So and you have to be willing to be put
for 9-10 years.
Absolutely. When Usman and Jomai came out of prison, they went to a hotel. They didn't go to home to the wives or anything. They went to a hotel chain, and then they are on the convoy. Called out of prison. And then that was just the tail end of a very, very long struggle. Same guy in Ekasi diaspora, they have a network where it's a 24-hour operation because they are on different time zones. Why, you know, our politics, even in the diaspora, then go by Samazi, right? You know, and the most people are not, they're not in it there. So, you know, it's the voter. The Gambian voter is the one that has to change. And Muhamne, NB Enamla, and then only Yalla Sahdefane. I am not going to change the condition of a people who are not willing to change themselves. Then you will always have the ruler that is a reflection of who you are in the preponderance. Not all of them. Obviously, you know, not all of us are alike. Why Ningen Mel in your majority, non la nyinga hamne who will be presiding over your affairs will be like. You know, Halifa Musna like a question in one of the meetings you guys organized in Atlanta. I was there. Yeah. Mune, I asked this question: what is the wage of sacrifice in Gambia? In that one, I was there. Demba Balde was there. You were there. Nyom Jo Sambu and all of that. And I think Keba was there and all of those people. What is the wage of sacrifice in Gambian politics? And it was a rhetorical question. The answer is 0 because Nini recognizing sacrifice.
No, they don't.
No, they don't recognize sacrifice. They want fluff and somebody who's going to tell them, well, you are happy, you know, Kirib Karab, Dekabida for living ni. Musa living is an opposition, he's a rebel, he's this and that. Or, you know, Saul Baji can be the best person why he has an opinion you don't like, and then you think he's Satan. You have to have room for everybody. So that's what I think 2026 has to be about. It's the voter. The ball is in our court. If we play the same game, this crew and Dusan, you want to deal with Henry Gomez and Nyomse Humbalo and people like Nyom Sidi. Can you imagine Sidinja is holding sway in your country.
Exactly.
You know, this guy is a non-entity. Why he's there?
Yes,
He's got
that is not the change.
But he's putting on a suit, going to London, and he's speaking for you.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't care about you. It's all about.
And if we are not careful,
they will hold sway.
These are the same people. They will have it their way. I can guarantee you that.
Musa, 20 years we've been dealing with this Sidinja type
Exactly.
20-something years.
Exactly.
I mean, for a country that has the best people, I mean, you open your them on LinkedIn, the quality of people we have, Musa. Well educated, very experienced, patriotic. Why they are out of national life. The family, we've become a Sarah, billahi, and you have to deal with Sidinja 20-something years.
Billahi.
So
you had Karamba. I'm sure that we got about maybe 13-14 minutes. We'll be out of here for. I mean, and I'm glad, man, because we were gonna actually cancel tonight's show. And I'm glad I didn't, because I'm like, no way in hell. We're gonna come here and we're gonna have a discussion of some sort. And I'm really glad, man, we're able to pull it off. But so 2026, it's gonna happen fairly soon. And if you were to ask me, it is for the Sidinjais and the Sehumbalos and for the Barrow to lose, really. And if you ask me today, I can guarantee you, they will be re-elected. So something needs to be done, bold and different. If we're not careful, it will be the same old, same old. What say you? Looking at what happens, how can we?
Why that's okay. Keba, I can go before.
Okay. So Keba, you wanna come in? Same question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 2026, Keba. Same question. What needs to be done? We saw what happened. We saw what we did in 2016. I believe that there are experiences that we learn from. What do we do now to get ready for 2026 so that we can bring about change?
Well, let me just draw a parallel between our Gambian situation and the Senegalese situation. In Gambia, we started a coalition effort prior to 2006. And from that coalition effort, NAT was born. We have NAT. And after we have NAT, during the process of creating the coalition, we come up with a memorandum of understanding. And that MOU is the same, is the project that Sonko and Duma is talking about. They have their own MOU, which is their project. Yeah, and then that's what they're going to implement. So our project was that MOU from 2006. And from 2006 to 2016, fast forward to 2016, it was that same MOU that was presented at Sadao Kereba that hall, Sadao Kereba Hall in Senegambia. So that MOU is our project. Our failure of 2016 is due to the fact that we didn't conclude the project. We didn't implement the project. The lack of implementation of that project is our failure. But what can we do in 2026? In 2026, I believe before we choose a leader, we have to sell that project to the Gambian people. The difference is the Senegalese people, they bought the project. They know the project, they accepted the project. So when you sell the project to the people and they understand it and they accept it, it won't be a problem to choose a leader. You can easily get a leader. That's why it was easy when Macky Sall stopped Sonko from being a candidate, for Sonko to get about 5 or 6 alternative candidates to come in. So if we get a project, take it to the Gambian people, and the Gambian people accept it, who is going to lead it is not going to be a problem. Any of the people that initiate that project and believe in that project can take that project to conclusion. So our failure is not the project itself. Our failure is by choosing a leadership that don't believe in the project. The other day, I was telling somebody that I doubt whether Barrow ever read the Memorandum of Understanding. I seriously doubt that. So Barrow don't have no clue what is the Memorandum of Understanding. So he don't have no investment in that project. He don't believe in the project. That's why he didn't implement the project. On the contrary, Barrow is going back to the people that we fought with for 22 years and bringing them back. And then instead of bringing the project and implementing our project, Barrow is fighting against that project by aligning himself with the very people we are fighting to implement this project. And that will be my conclusion.
So,
wow.
2026, something has to be. I just want to read what this Babukar Wad, and then you can take it from there. Said Musa Jan, Barrow has no legitimacy to run the 2026 elections. These coming elections should an opportunity for real change and not just another battle between NPP versus UDP. Our foremost battle should be no Barrow participation in 2026 after 2 terms and a new constitution, electoral reforms with 50+1. No constitutional coup. Barrow and his allies in the National Assembly arrogantly ditched the new constitution process and thus wasted $116 million that could have been used for something else. Basically, what the guy is saying, I mean, I don't think there is any Gambian that should, disagree with that. The moment it becomes another NPP versus UDP kind of politics, and that's what Karamba is saying, that's when we delve into identity politics and all this BS. And we know how that, that movie will end up, just where we are right now. If Abakari Tombos, people, you're going to have 19 other candidates who's going to put their hat in the ring, and at the end, either they will be, the Independent Electoral Commission will, Nakalenko Wahati, Dunjan jail, and then they will turn around and endorse Barrow, Uchineka, waiting, if I go with you, you'll take care of me after you win. What say you 2026? What should we learn from the Senegalese experience in combining with what we learned in 2016? Sorry.
Yeah, this is a great way to conclude, Musa. I'm going to segue and take up from where Kebafun ended. First thing, we have to have somebody or go back and dust off that agenda and revisit the agenda and fine-tune the agenda. But quickly, the point that we should all be crying out for those of us who are out in the diaspora is, why are you, me, Musa, Karamba, and everybody watching not able to participate in the elections of our own country, where we invest, last I checked, over $700 million US. And Musa, you and me and Keba and Karamba and everybody watching would agree that what we have invested in that country in the last cycle that was reported by the central bank is over $1 billion US. And we all know that because most of us would take money that is not going through the channels of these forex bureaus that would be captured by the central bank. So that is a number that we can always talk about. If you look at the population of our country and the amount of money we are pumping into that country from the diaspora, that should give us the leverage and the push to make sure that this constitution, like this young man, this guy, Babukar Wada, is passed. That should be what we should be fighting for. That you, me, and everybody else should be able to not only vote, our children qualify to vote because the constitution says so, the old one, but more so this new constitution that's coming up should give us the opportunity. So now is the time that this constitution is passed. And yes, I agree with Babukar. Adama Barrow, by all indications now, should actually do at the tail end what Macky Sall did, even though I think there was some kind of game in it of saying, I am not going to participate in the elections. The NPP will select a candidate and this candidate will run, but I'm going to oversee the elections and make sure we have a free and fair elections in which whoever wins becomes the next president of the country. Do I think that Adama Barrow would actually do that, Musa Jeng? I don't think so, because not only Adama Barrow is actually a prisoner in that state house, whether we know it or not. Now he has created a situation for himself, where the people, just like Macky Sall did, they were telling him, "You're doing the right thing. Yeah, President bi Musa, yo yafi mun everything. Tahawal bula kenna. Nanga wax guy." Just what he was doing to Madi Jabate. That where were you? Where was these things that are nonsensical, Musa? Lolu mo ñu nekk di delloo gannaaw. Adama Barrow did not read this manifesto, and I'm afraid I agree with Brother Keba that if he had read it, he would have taken, if he was also genuine, that the way to go as a leader of this country is to make sure that we not only pass the constitution, but also all the reforms that we put in place after our political leader was put in jail, after so many people were killed, Musa, that we should be able to say Solo Sandeng will not die in vain, that the victims who are actually suffering for 7 years, that we will make sure that those victims' death was not in vain, just like Karamba said. The price of sacrifice for the country. What was it? I think we made some mistakes. We should all take ownership of our mistakes, but we can also take the opportunity, just like COVID, Musa Jeng. Gis nga bi COVID-19 ñëwee am nga waxoon naa li mel clip ne 100 years ago nit ñi dañ doon foog ne ay dooma ñoom ñoo create COVID because it was out in the air. Nobody knew what it was. Yaya Jammeh su fi nekkoon dafa dem di rëy nit ñi màggeti ne leen ay dooma ngeen yéen a tax nit ñi nekk di dee fii. But we have moved on as a continent. We have moved on as we should move on as the world has. We must put ourselves in the position of preparing our youth folk. As I conclude, Musa, the youth folk are the vanguards. They are the golden opportunity that God has given the continent of Africa. The United States population is dwindling because the growth rate, the birth rate is not as robust as it was. You see Japan struggling. Even China has to rethink the one-child policy. We have been gifted with an opportunity. We cannot allow our young people to take flight and move out of the country, whether it's intentional or not. We need to create that opportunity of giving them hope, just like PASTEF has done. Now, the fight and the most important struggle that is coming for PASTEF is how do they manage the expectation of these young people? We have to take that and add that to the cake, the icing of the cake of what our project is going to be for 2026 to make sure Adama Barrow does not participate, but that we also participate in the elections. And we stay on top of everything, like Kebalum Don Wahnono. We will never relent and continue to make sure that we implement the strategies and the plans that we want for Better Gambia.
Karamba, there is this, as I listen to you, of course, you know that we've been on this journey for a long time.
Yes.
And looking at Senegal, we see an Ousmane Sonko. We also see this so-called project. For me, it's a combination of the two. But as I listen to you, we have a Karamba Toure. I mean, an individual who's been in politics for a long time, and this I know, who is very, when he speaks, even people that disagree will listen and they'll say, like UDP, but Karamba definitely, I like the way he put things across. You speak, I always say to myself, Smomonona Lakapol Sose all of me Karamba, and I'm not just talking about, you know, Kumuna the label Tibetan language, Kokudegana language. So sometimes people are saying we need something also like a Karamba Toure that can connect and win the hearts and minds and also be able to articulate, just like Nyom Usman Sonko, they are able to do, these complex issues about debt, these complex issues about inflation, to the person Keneka Balangar, to the person Kuneka Tunia Taba, in a language that that person understands, something different. why wouldn't we have something like a Karamba Ture, really, that people can really be there, okay, he sounds and look different. In the absence of that, I think for me, 2026, it will be the same old, same old. Why wouldn't a Karamba Ture look into that? I know that you don't want to run for office. I heard you say that again and again, that you don't even want to run, you don't even want to be part of a government. But if we do that, then we're left with the sitting guys, the people that will hijack the process. And in the end, we're back to square one. Why wouldn't a Karamba Ture really look into that? Because that's where the problem is. We have to have the right person, and yes, the messenger, and then the right message.
Okay. It's a fair question. And it comes back to what I said earlier, that the 2026 has to be about the voter and the decisions the voter make. Now, what you just mentioned, the voter has to have a message, and then he has to get the message from somebody that he has confidence in, and from somebody that is articulating it in a manner that is relatable to them. We have that problem in all parties. All parties have, especially speaking from the party that I belong to, I believe we have a very deep bench of people that have far more capable than me, people that have a lot more experience than me, people that have a lot more ideas than I do. It's a question of how do each of us play our role. Your role, Musa, is to analyze the situation and then create a forum where I can come, Saul can come, Keba can come. We all don't agree on everything. You send Sako panelists, you don't agree on all of that. Pa Samba is more liberal than you are, and then you don't agree on a lot of different things. But you are able to have a discussion that creates a consensus. The bottom line issues, we are not all that far apart. While swing politics, we look at Sonal Musa, is what we've been discussing all day. It's what Pastef has been able to break through, which is how do you conceive and then have a ground game that allows people to understand what your concepts are, and then you get a buy-in from them. So the first thing you have to do is to get the people's attention on the issues. This is the biggest barrier we have, is that the attention grabbing, because standing up and then talking in a political rally is not a discussion. You are throwing red meat to your own people. Because it's not the persuadable that you want. No, you can say, well, you are throwing them red meat, but in the process, are you really connecting with the other person who is not a card-carrying member of your party, who maybe has a different idea, who maybe doesn't agree with you on all of the things? Though I'm Ben political party, you will agree with them. For example, I can tell you, when it comes to one of the things I am interested in, which is devolution of power, my position is not very far from Doi. I have read what Doi wants to do, and I think basically we all want to devolve power to the village level. That's what they want to do. That's what I want to do too. Man yeti priority la am in UDP. Moi agriculture and food security, devolution of power, and then also pro-business economic policies. Because I'm not a communist. I believe in building the private sector so that they create jobs. Understand? So in those are the three areas that I participate. Even in our manifesto, the input that I gave was in those three areas. Understand? And my role, I am a facilitator. I believe that if our team wins and I'm on the outside, for example, we are working. Our agriculture policy says we want to do the Maputo Declaration, which is 10% of the national budget will be invested in agriculture and rural development. So Mansuma role would be to just park up small dobas, go and then be sort of like the lobbyists for it outside of government. We cannot all be in the government bureaucracy. So we can make sure that when they are putting the budget together, they are heading into the 10%. And once it is put together, the ministry is organized so that they can execute 10% rather than taking all this agriculture money. Because the current Ministry of Agriculture bureaucracy, they are experts in draining project funds, and then they've got trek and meetings and buying vehicles and then tapale can do get nothing. So if somebody like me is not on the outside, our UDP people inherit the same Ministry of Agriculture. You gotta push for them to reform. You get all the thieves out, bring independent experts, bring them in, and then tell them, look, rise self-sufficiency 5 years. Show me, and this is the plan you are going to do, and then have the president every 2 months with rainbows, counting the number of hectares under cultivation. Have timeline. So, my role to answer your question is to fight as hard as I can to get my side elected, and then to be on the outside to make sure that they do what I believe in terms of those priorities. And then there are all people who have other priority areas. We have people who are interested in IT, and it doesn't only have to be UD.
Yeah, but all that sound fine and dandy. But in we're confronted with a problem. Before you can do all that, you have to be elected.
Yes.
You know, I mean, and I think that is the heavy lifting that has
that is where, yes.
I mean, it has been elusive for the past several years. Getting elected. So I'm just saying, I mean, unless we have a Usman Sonko type, and again, I'm not naive.
No, I think a good candidate, yes. Usman Sonko at this point is the template.
Exactly that.
Okay. Now we can get a good candidate. And not only my party, all the parties.
All the parties, no doubt.
Yeah, all the parties can get a good candidate because they have a deep bench, like I said.
Right.
And the issue, and I think Pa Samba mentioned this when he came in, it is not typical. Sometimes when the euphoria is going, right now we are all into the young people because Usman is young, Joma is young, and they are vigorous. Right. But there are not so young people in Pastev too. You understand?
Oh,
yeah, there are. So the issue is what Lukojwa. It is the person's integrity before they a good leader has to be patriotism, and Musa, we are not teaching patriotism in our schools. And that's why part of our problem is that you can get the Gambian Munna Hartanki to get ahead himself, but try to get a group dynamic and have people work in a team, and most of the time it all falls apart because kuchineka dafa ngiro ngaro, and then it's all about nakalai rae racha kusumakana. And patriotism kills that. If you see a lot of people that are dedicated to country, they are selfless people. Then they nangu chono, then they nangu nyaka system alal, freedom and everything. We don't have a lot of that injected in our politics. That's why it's very easy for somebody put on a half-time money jogging as a party bini. Or Kila don't criticize your film nekani, you are the best thing, DP, sliced bread. And they have no shame because to them it's just like a transaction. Oh, I'm coming back. I'm doing all of that. So it's us, the people. We all have to change, Musa.
Yeah.
Our leaders have to change. At the individual level, soon orientation has to change. Limala nyan moine platform binga am. Let us make this about the voter and why it is important for them to relate to their own faith. You wanna decide accordingly. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do because could talk some guy in a pickup truck and that how do you reach that person, Musa? You are a public communicator. How do you reach that person? Kimala Wanyamina, Kungahamne, Esa by Fal, them Nabekimo, or Nakoni, if he elected Esa president. I'm not even saying vote for our candidate. Why, if you voted for Esa has all his own money. He's not trying to build I'm not Taham Before. He's not hungry and all of that. To do his part. So we can Gomulo Useno Dabo, Gomulo Halifa, Gomulo Mama Kande. Give Esa a chance. Because definitely the mafute could have your lively help because I have no connection in Yamina other than wanting to serve you. Why the fuck you now? I'm out for 5 votes, huh? They are not going to vote for it. That's the problem we have. No, they are not going to do that. So it's the voter. So you in communication and all of us, a lot of times, all jokes aside, we cannot give up on the country. If you do, like you said, you're going to have the Sirinjai crowd. Henry Gomez, Save Humbalo, people like that. And even some of the traitors from my own party. Because at that time, well, as soon as we did that, we all flew back and we went to Usenu UDP government knew. Because all they wanted to do was they want the guy as if he ran the whole country. Give me a job. Give me this, give me that. This is a coalition government. I cannot hire you. I'm not the public service coming. And then they use that as politics. Oh, that's why I'm leaving. So if you have people like that, the politics is dirty. And to move away from that is very, 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 very hard to do. because it comes down to the individual. You also ne luma def defal Gambia suma bopa rek motax ma ko def. Kon yow deka bi jaralul la dara di nothing. Jaralul la nothing.
Yeah, but Karamba, the reality too is people are seeing that at the end of the day. Like I said, we've been on this 20-year struggle.
Yeah.
When everything is said and done, tyranny was gone. We also in a democracy. And what we are witnessing, no hamne, affaire bi jaralulen sax lift a finger.
Yeah.
Lift a finger lalawa.
Yeah.
Now they are the ones. Call it whatever you want to call it.
They are running the gravy train. Yeah.
Running the show, making the decisions, negative. I mean, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You know, what was I
It
doing
hurts.
all this for?
Yeah.
Less in fairness, I'm not even looking for one time position in Maki, but at least the very change that we are fighting for. But the change is not there. Man nguru masi, nije nguru mo some other people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
it hurts. It does hurt. So we all have to do, and then
it keeps you thinking that, you know what? Maybe what the hell? Let me join the show as well.
Yeah. And that's what we all have to change, and we have to, even the nature of leadership has to evolve and change for the better. Because Sunko the food, we are going to be running in circles, and then come nimala go here, yalla do they tan nit njiti I need, except for the way the majority is. So the majority has to change. That's why Yahya Jammeh stuck around for 20 years. I mean, can you imagine? He did that because we were not. The force that was attacking him to change, it was in the minority. Most people were just content. You know, man defu madara so mo nguria lack of attack.
Yeah.
You know, and then some people were actually more cynical than that. Ni mo chaw ñu sen affaire neexuma so bayal ma mu chaw le mu rey le mu
they break the laws.
Of course.
Exactly.
Suma defu de dara, and then, you know, this Musa Jeng is a pesky guy. Look, jot moko indil bopa. That's the attitude of some people. You know, I remember when we used to do demonstrations, we would pass them, but we used to try to shame some of our people there. They will, you know, Yahya Jammeh will do a reception in a fancy hotel, New Solsen, Kosi, if you know, and then we used to call them rare cut. Why in the end, some of them had a little bit of shame. They were going through the back door. Why following? You know, and they just couldn't be bothered, because you know, we are in America here. Then is why we are trying to protest this.
Wasting our time.
You know. But I am glad that we fought that fight, and we have to continue that.
Absolutely. So final words from you and Saul, so that we can get out of here. And Sumawaji, soon to Dafe. I always like to Nico a little bit. Senegalese society is different from Gambia. So their template is not necessarily going to be compatible with ours. I don't know about that. I mean, yeah, we are not the same, but there's nothing wrong with looking at what they have done and see how we can tailor-made it to our situation. That's simple for you. So Keba, final comments.
Well, final comment be Karamba make it easy for me. He ran down the struggle and what we did. So fi mu nekk nii Karamba li ma wax mooy ñun miñ doon ooyee ñu ñàkk a fayda yi bi ñoo dem di demonstrate. So ñun ñu ñàkk a fayda yi, let's come back together and go back to the drawing board. That's my conclusion.
Going back to the drawing board, Keba, I have absolutely no doubt about that. But I also want to caution, what we were confronted with in 2006, that we came together, it cannot be the same playbook for the situation that we are in today. Yes, there is a need to come together to bring change in 2026. But let us not get carried away that what worked in 2016 is the same playbook that can be utilized. We can agree to disagree. We can brainstorm and trying to find a way that at least we can influence change. So Saul, last statement from you.
Well, I think there's change is coming, but whether we're gonna grasp and take advantage of that change that has been put on our peninsula in the sub-region there,
is another thing. Manda also believe Musa. We can start now as we go towards 2026, but I think the sub-region needs to pivot quickly to become a unified entity that is going to carry one currency, also create a central system for Hamentene. We will not allow the West, because that is the way they've been able to circumvent our systems, that they can negotiate with Senegal on different terms and come to Nigeria and negotiate on different terms. But if we have that drive from the ECOWAS, the real ECOWAS that I think we should have, it'll help us mitigate these situations. The problem we want to solve right now is our youth folk, Musa. How do we get our youth folk to be informed? Because our school systems are not ready. The school is an avenue where we can sensitize our young people such that they can learn from what is happening around the world and within their sub-region, and be able to go home and tell their parents that this is where the world is. Like you said, Musa, we're not going to be able to fight the fight that we did before using the same tools and the same system. It's not going to happen. And again, we've already learned the lessons because we made sure that we won and we went to sleep. We cannot do that anymore. But one of the things that I think we should begin to discuss is using these platforms and sensitizing our people that if Senegal is able to move in a direction that is the envy of our sub-region, we should be able to. Why? Because not only do we have 2 million people in our country, but we also have some advantages where we don't have the political powerhouses such as the Murids and these entrenched wealthy people who have been pushing Macky Sall to do the opposite. We can change our country by making sure we pass the constitution, just table the constitution the way it is. And if we have a new parliament and we want to change that, then we can do that in the long run. But we make sure that we implement, that we force Adama Barrow to begin to implement the changes that we wanted. The TRRC constitution, commissions, what do you call it again? The decisions and the recommendations that they made, that Adama Barrow must begin to be seen to implement those. We have a fee that we have to pay, Musa, of 20 million pounds because of a legal case that has been ruled in our country. We cannot do this. That if we have that are given to the government to use in a project, that we should be able to stand up and tell the government that it must do right. But I also want to conclude with this, Musa. The Gambian Bar Association must begin to stand up. If they don't want to do that, then we cannot call them the Gambian Bar Association. They must be able to point fingers at Adama Barrow for the things that he's doing wrong. That are women folk who are the backbone of our economy. We cannot be going out and persecuting them and arresting them. In every country in Africa, this happens. Now, you can say, Musa, can say, well, if it's happening in Nigeria, should we accept it? That we need to clear our streets. Of course we do, but we need to communicate with our people and hand that power to the local governments, decentralize and tell the local governments, we will help you if you need support, but here's a piece of plot that we need to temporarily place these women to have sales of their common goods that they sell. Every one of us can attest to the fact that at some point in time, they were doing hawking. They were selling goods on the streets to be able to either supplement the income that our parents, our fathers are putting on the table, or you send husbands in general new uniform in school. Mandal Fuvula Neka, that is how I benefited. Tough Africa Global, Wahnako, Fuvula benefited. And you are Adama Barrow, Mubai, Mary, Jigeni, you jai the goods. Let them give him an alternative before we start to enforce the law, and let him go to the courts. Now Adama Barrow relinquish the power and give it to the other two branches, so go to venue a balanced playing field. Jajifati.
So Karamba, final word. You guys have been terrific. And Karamba told me he was only going to be on for 20-30 minutes. He ended up staying
the
entire show. So
seeing you, Keba and Saul, and our old friend Pasamba on a conference call again brought back a lot of memories. So I think that perked me up, and then I was able to reschedule whatever I had in line. Why? Jerejef Musa, and continue to do this good job that you are doing, which is public education. Buko help. You bring people in, and then you know, and I see that recent of late the government officials are also coming. It's good for them to come and talk to you, and then answer the hard questions, and let us have a conversation on the issues that affect all of us, and then let us all understand that this is our country. Nobody is going to come fix all of these problems for us. Bepare su affaire yi boné bepare ñun ñep ñu géda ñu bay ko fofu nonu mbon bi dafa gëna yokku rek, and then amuñ fenn fuñ dem. I mean, we will all have to go back to our own home there, and we want it to be a better place. And 2026 we need to bring change, and we need to bring fundamental change. We need to have a rule of law society. Bepare we can do better, and we are not going to do the coming change can only come through electoral success. So electoral success can only come through effective communication, and then trying to convince people. Politics is a game of persuasion. Disagreement is healthy. It's good. But when I disagree with you, it doesn't mean that I should have any kind of malice behind it. In the same direction. Why? Let's talk, and let's talk with sincerity, and let us all teach ourselves how to be more patriotic. Because if you are patriotic, you can survive your differences. If you are not patriotic, you will all retreat. We will all retreat into our own little corners, and then just be fighting a fratricidal war in which there are no winners. Because they can be stagnate, lady. You know, the people that are in charge are not capable. Why their incompetence has consequences even on the capable people who are trying to make it there.
Absolutely.
And all of us are affected. So more than water here, we need to engage them, the government. If we need to engage them, we need to fight them. If we need to fight them, we certainly need to change them by 2026, Musa.
Exactly. Yeah. But again, Karamba, definitely, I definitely thank you guys, and happy Easter Sunday to our Christian brothers. And part of the, if you look at the something streaming there, it's for the people, by the people. We're having a town hall meeting during the July 4th celebration. Talib Bensouda, the Lord Mayor of Kanifing, will be here to meet diaspora, have an interactive meeting with Gambians here in Atlanta and people that are coming from outside. I'm hoping that the Karamba tourists of this world will join us. This is important, really. I mean, it's part of building the bridge between the diaspora and these upcoming politicians in the Gambia. I mean, this July 4th is going to be Talib. We're looking to bring in some other young politicians, the young Dabos of this world. I mean, and even the, I mean, the NPP upcoming politicians as well. Because Purnyun, we have to talk, not just among ourselves, but even people that we disagree with. That is the only way that we can bring about change. So any of you guys that are listening, get your tickets ready, head on to Atlanta. This July 4th is going to be big. It's going to be huge. And just like we did, going all the way back, Keba, if you remember, Mid the Diaspora Summit, when the politicians came, to Atlanta, when Sadauda Keraba came here to launch his book, when Halifa Saleh came to launch his book. I mean, that's what we are known for. We try to do the big things, things that are different. And this coming year, this coming July 4th, we are also going to be rolling out the carpet, the red carpet, for the Lord Mayor of Kanifing. All right, guys, thanks again. We will be back. No doubt.
Thank you, Keba and Saul.
Thank you very much.
All right, Karamba. Thank you, Karamba.
Thank you. Good talking to you.
All right.
Yes.
Bye, Keba.